everybody, what's up? I'm Steven.
And I'm Clay.
And we are
the Hills Maniacs.
And in today's video, we are going to be reviewing our... we rewatched the movie Knives Out from, what was it, last year? Like last November or something?
I think so.
2019.
Because quarantine.
We got nothing else to do, so we're watching movies, playing video games and things. But, so we rewatched that, and today we're going to give kind of our thoughts on that movie, because we didn't review it when it originally came out. We're going to try to do this a lot more, too, with some other movies, some of our other favorite things we've seen over the years, and even the current movies that come out whenever they do. So, we'll start with you, Clay. What did you think of the movie after seeing it the first time, compared to the second time we saw it already?
Well, I've actually seen it 3 times.
Oh, yeah,
I saw it in
right.
theaters, and then I watched it by myself on DVD, and then we watched it again together on DVD.
Okay, so after seeing it 3 times...
After seeing it 3 times, I still love the movie. I think it was a great movie. Rian Johnson definitely redeemed himself after The Last Jedi. He definitely made a better movie. It was kind of like a comedy version of Clue, but it only had comedy in the right parts.
Yeah, it wasn't too heavy on the comedy.
And
it wasn't a spoof. Like, I thought going in that maybe it would be like a...
Right.
As I started seeing the funny moments, I started thinking it was going to be like a spoof of like detective movies or something.
Right.
But it wasn't.
It was a serious movie for the most part, with its funny parts thrown in, which is what a good movie should do. It should be able to balance, you know, the comedy with the seriousness, and the movie did a great job at that. And I've seen it 3 times, and I've really enjoyed it every time I've watched it.
I've seen it twice, and I am a fan of like the detective movies and mysteries and things like that, like Clue, the board game, and all these other things, Sherlock Holmes stuff, whatever. So this kind of, I mean, it was a different take on sort of how a mystery works. Like they originally, they kind of reveal through that it was a suicide, but there was an attempted murder, and then somebody actually got murdered. You know, so there's all this stuff that goes on in this movie. Now, when I first saw it, though, like midway through the movie, when they started revealing what actually happened, I was like, well, that's different, but is this the end of the movie already? Like, are they reviewing? Because it was like, I think midway, maybe there was like 30 minutes left or something. I didn't know how long the movie actually was at the time when we saw it in theaters.
Right.
And it was like they were revealing everything so quickly, and I'm like, is that all there is to this? It's just a suicide, and this person did this and all that, but then they started getting into, there was a deeper mystery within it, and that's what made it so intriguing, was that there was something else going on, that there was still, if you wait it out, there's still more to find out about.
Right.
So they did that really good, and played that out well. I also enjoyed the actors that were in it as well, too.
A lot of good ones. Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis, Chris Evans, Daniel Craig, Frank Oz was in it, Christopher Plummer was in it, Don Johnson was in it, and then a couple other people that I don't remember their names, but
yeah, it was a
pretty good
cast of characters.
And see, normally I get worried when you have a lot of good actors in a movie, because then you end up with a movie like Cats, and it just...
I didn't even see it. I know it was trash.
Yeah, and you think it's going to be, you know, crap. Just because there's a bunch of big-name actors in it doesn't mean it's going to be a good movie. But this really was a good movie. And I like the fact that they took a suicide but made it a suicide because something else happened.
Yeah.
Or at least they tried to. You know, they had... I don't really want to spoil the movie, but something happens that leads the guy to commit suicide, even though he was probably going to do it anyways, but they just kind of make it play so that it's a reason for him to want to commit suicide, and then we find out later what actually happened, and it's a lot.
And I like that it's one of those classic sort of like Clue thing where they're in like a mansion, there's like 6 people that live with this guy. It's
literally Clue, but...
And they're all, like, basically they're all suspects. Like, maybe 4 of them had a motive for wanting the guy dead and things like that. So it's one of those classic things where you don't know for sure who could have actually done it, who drove him to commit suicide, things like that. And that's another thing that really played into the intrigue of the whole thing, was that it was there was twists and turns everywhere and swerves, different things that were happening throughout that made you think maybe it's this person, maybe it's this person, and that's what you want.
And like any good detective movie, they show us enough to give us the opportunity to try to figure it out, but then it completely changes at the end. Like if you watch any cop shows, like I'm a huge fan of Law and Order SVU. If you watch it, it shows at the beginning something that happens, but then we find out that it happened different than what it showed us. I kind of like that because it's not showing you exactly what happened because that would give it away, but it's giving you enough detail for you to figure out that something happened, just maybe not in the order or the sequence that you think it happened in.
Plus having some of the characters like swerve us with each of them gave a different description of events from the night that the guy was killed.
And each of them tells a different story as to what happened between them and the victim.
Yeah.
So it's like...
So it was a lot...
and somebody will rat on somebody else and say they did something, so then they'll have to change their story, and it's just a classic, every suspect tries to lie to the detectives, and then
something ends up happening, and
then he figures it out anyways. And Daniel Craig played Detective Benoit Blanc, which, if I were Ryan Johnson, and you had him in the movie... The guy who plays James Bond, right, who in the movie says the name is Bond, James Bond, you very easily, when they ask, who is that, you could have had him say, the name is Blanc, Benoit Blanc. That's my hashtag scumbaggery right there, because Ryan Johnson didn't do that. He could have very easily done that and had the movie be 100 times better.
Just with that funny quote.
Just with that funny quote in there, because it's Daniel Craig. That's what he's known for, is playing James Bond. And now he's playing a detective with a kind of similar last name. Blanc, Bond, you could have played that in there. And then, but, the movie itself and his character was probably the funniest part of the entire movie.
Yeah, because the way he goes through things, he described their situation. He
goes through his process out loud.
Yeah,
and it's just hilarious.
Like he described it as we have a donut hole that now has a donut inside it that has its own hole.
Yeah, they have a donut with a hole in the middle, and then they have the donut hole with a hole in the middle. Because there's something else happening. So there's a mini donut inside the donut instead of it being a donut hole. I don't know what that has to do with the case, but it's hilarious.
Is it a donut hole or a whole donut?
And then just the play on words, because if you don't pay attention the first time you watch this movie, some of the subtle little hints that they say throughout the movie, you won't catch on to right away.
And it's even some of the stuff like I've watched other reviews of this and things where people noticed even some of the stuff, like the way things were set up in the background was meant to foreshadow things, or just even if it was just a brief moment, a brief glimpse at something, a picture in the background or whatever, or the way someone was seated, or there's a baseball that's kind of plays into something later.
It plays into a storyline between two characters, which...
Yeah, it's a big house. There's a lot of statues and things everywhere. It's just, and the way people are seated in certain areas and it all kind of comes into that. That's what makes it a good movie, and that's what you want to have in a good sort of this mystery detective noir kind of thing.
Well, and there's kind of a mini mystery within the mystery too, because Benoit Blanc's character gets hired by somebody to investigate this crime. But he doesn't know who. So throughout the movie, we're not only trying to figure out who committed the crime, if a crime occurred, but also why he was recruited to be there in the first place. Because that would mean it would have to be somebody that knew of the crime that
he's
occurred.
kind of like that Sherlock Holmes.
And
Like
then,
he's in
yes.
the they see him in the newspaper and they decide to hire him.
Yeah,
on this.
he's a private investigator. He's not really
Yeah,
a detective.
But he decides to assist them, and I guess they're
Yes.
making a second movie with him. I don't know when.
Maybe they'll
that's
have him say
happening, but-
Blanc, Benoit Blanc in this.
But it's kind of like the Hercule Poirot thing too, with like the Murder on the Orient Express. They're making another
was a
one of
good movie.
that from the Agatha Christie novels. But then I mean I'd like to
So
see a
yeah, it
second one
won't
of
be like a
this
direct sequel to this movie,
with the same cast,
but it'll be
probably.
a Benoit Blanc.
Yeah, like another
movie
Benoit
type.
Blanc
So
adventure.
it would be like having Sherlock Holmes, another Sherlock Holmes movie that had nothing to do with any other Sherlock Holmes movie. That's what it would be like. It's still a Sherlock Holmes. It's just
If I were to like rank this movie based on just like the things that happen in it and things, I'd give it maybe like an 8 out of 10 or like 3 out of 5.
I mean, it was definitely Knives Out and Holmes and Watson were definitely my two favorite films of last year. And that's saying something because I saw a lot of movies last year.
Avengers Endgame.
Eh.
But
But
yeah,
out of the movies that came out last year that I saw, this is definitely maybe not my top 2, but this is definitely in my top 5. Just because of how funny it was and the fact that I can rewatch it, know what happens, and still figure out stuff that I never paid attention to the first time.
yeah, like that's like with me even. Like I was kind of confused when I first saw it,
Right.
but then coming back in watching it again, like now I recognize some of the things. I notice, oh, this person said this. Like I didn't catch that the first time around, and that kind of knowing what the end result is,
Right.
and going back in and watching it was very helpful.
Allows you to
understand
it allows you to put all those little subtle hints together too, like because you know what the end result is, so then you can keep that in your mind while you're watching it, and you're like, okay, well this plays into that because of this, and and you figure out that the whole movie pretty much tells you who it is
or what exactly
or what happened. You just have to pay attention and look at all the subtle little
and it kind of forces you
things
to piece together the mystery too, which is a lot of fun as well, because it keeps you entertained, and it also helps you. It makes you feel like you're in the shoes of the which is what you want to do.
And that's what I like
about.
about detective movies like that. Like when they allow you
If they're
to,
good.
when they allow you to try and figure out, what's actually happening. And that's what I said earlier. Where it shows you one thing, but then tells you something different. Then you're trying to figure out what actually occurred. I just like that from it. It's the mystery aspect of the movie that got me.
What would you rank it if you had to?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably give it a 9. Just because of how much I liked it, and I really enjoyed the mystery of it, and the cast, and just the movie in general. Seeing it 3 times, and it's still rewatchable. And
like I gave it an
love
8.
it.
Like I don't think it's a perfect movie, but like
Oh,
there
no,
were
it
some
has
things
flaws.
that could have
Yeah.
like gone differently or whatever. But
that's why I didn't give it a 10, because it
But
does
may-
have flaws, but it is
Yeah.
definitely a good movie. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend you check it out.
I mean, so there you have it, guys. That's our review of Knives Out. Let us know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you've ever seen the movie, or like once or more than once, or if you're planning on seeing it. I don't know why you're watching this video, because it's a spoiler review, but that's all we have. Look for more of these kind of videos. We're gonna be doing like a lot of reviews, probably on like
I mean, who knows how long we're gonna be trapped in the house because of this quarantine thing. So
yeah, so we'll be doing.
we'll
probably be
have
watching,
a lot more of these.
watching
on
a
here,
lot of
but-
videos and things. And I hope you enjoy the movie if you do go in, or if you do get it. It's out on DVD or probably on demand or whatever. But yeah, I would recommend it. And take care, everyone. Stay safe from the virus, and stay indoors. Don't get anyone else sick or get yourself sick. Just listen to what people are saying. Stay indoors.
Yeah.
Take
All
care,
right.
everyone.
Bye, guys.